flicker of fluorescence re-engaging. Abu Ali's wooden chair sat upside down on the counter, his prayer rug folded beside it. On the latter, 2 indentations marked the imprint of his knees. They stared back at Sami through the window, like his ghost. A taunting jinn standing between him and the medicine he needed, which was painfully plentiful on the shelves overhead. Even through the muck and darkness, he could make out boxes and bottles of unpronounceable elixirs, all organized by ailment. Cold and flu, nausea and diarrhea, fever and parasites, bacterial infection, pediatrics. His eyes darted back to the counter where at last he found the anti-nausea tablets he was after and stared longingly from the other side of the glass. Abu Ali's absence wasn't the only oddity that night. As Sami turned to leave, he froze. He'd been in such a rush to get to the pharmacy and get it over with that he hadn't even realized the whole boulevard was utterly empty and that there was a police truck parked across the intersection, the latter cordoned off with a rope. What was happening? All he could think of was that it was National Police Day, though it was a pretty meaningless holiday that usually came and went without notice and certainly didn't warrant closure of a major thoroughfare like Ramsey's. He stepped forth slowly, as if some explanation might leap from the curb at the last moment, but nothing did. He was sure Abu Ali would have known, if only he were there tonight. Sighing, Sami looked back at the pharmacy's door again. It was still closed. The police truck remained parked in the street, listless, and any officers inside were surely asleep, as he should be too. He yawned and made his way back to the diesel, following that half-burnt sign like a decrepit North Star home. Empty-handed, Sami returned to apartment 702 to find Rose on the couch with her legs draped over the arm, the TV blaring before her. The news was on, talking about some man who'd set himself on fire on the steps of Parliament today, the latest in a string of copycat suicides. Only this one had survived. Now he lay in a full-body cast in Ras El Aini Hospital, where Mr. TV was broadcasting live from room 251B. "Come watch," said Rose from the couch, as if Sami had any choice. He took off his shoes and set them by the door beside Rose's beat-up boots and the maid's paper-thin slippers, then joined her. Up close he noticed the gray cast to her skin, her eyes glowing like venom against it. He'd say she was beautiful, but it seemed callous given her state, not to mention the sad display on TV, like kissing at a gravesite, distasteful. Know why he did it? Another protest? Sami reached for a cigarette, then stopped himself as he looked back at the TV. Self-immolation had become a sort of trend nowadays, so common it was no longer shocking, and in fact seemed a more reasonable method of protest with each day, each nameless nobody that became a martyr because of it. He assumed that was the intention. And to become a martyr? Well, duh, but you'll never guess what he was protesting. Parking ticket, electric bill, rotten fruit, same old? Nope, she said, trying to maintain her pep despite the increasing pallor of her face. Bread. The guy couldn't afford it. Not even fino, the cheap kind with bits of sand baked in. Crunchy. Anyway, the news is saying that his local bakery in Imbaba jacked up the price unfairly, but they're skirting around the real issue, the elephant in the room. There's an elephant in the room? I mean, they're ignoring the fact that fino is government bread. Bakers can resell it for whatever they want, but when there's a subsidy cut like there was this year, the price inevitably goes up. That's why the guy couldn't afford bread. So he'll go on a diet, cut carbs. She rolled her eyes. Not funny. Sami didn't get it. He was just trying to make her laugh at a story that was almost comical in its absurdity. He looked at his petrochemistry textbook on the coffee table, regretting choosing a field of study that taught him nothing of how to understand Rose. It wasn't the first time she confused him. She never had any desire to live in nicer parts of town like Zamalek, for instance, where foreigners like her were supposed to live in grand villas rented cheap with American dollars. Their buildings were named for flowers and French dignitaries rather than, say, gasoline. But Rose didn't care that Ramses was the industrial armpit of downtown. To her, that's what made it real. Just a brush of a shoulder from so-called real Egyptians, the sort who might set themselves on fire over bread. I've been researching this stuff all day, she said, reading from her phone. In the 1960s, self-immolation was a practice.